Hola, mis amigos. Soy La Mora de Paris, Roche Chanel, and you're watching the Three Count Podcast.
Welcome everybody to another great edition of the Three Count Podcast presents Now Entering the Ring. I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, and don't be afraid, I'm the one that's going to lead you on this expedition. But this is Now Entering the Ring, which means one thing: we have a guest for you. You can find this man at MAW, SW, SDW, AWF. You can find this man at PWA as well as FLWA. You can also find this man as the founder of Break Knyte Creative. Give it up for the man himself, Craven Knyte.
Oh, hello there. How's
Hi.
it going?
Thanks for joining us today.
Oh yeah, for sure. No problem. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, I'm super excited because it's not very often that I get to interview people who both do things in the design world as well as actually wrestle. I guess it's kind of weird because I guess for me, because I do this podcast plus I'm in the ring as well. But you legitimately have the clientele. Like if you guys haven't seen, go check out on his IG, Break
Knyte Creative.
Break Knyte Creative.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and it's like the name kind of came from the idea of me and my best friend back in the day when I would visit New York. We would hang out, but his mom wouldn't let me stay over when I'm visiting from Minnesota out there. So I was just like, okay, so we just hang out all night, but we just called it Breaking Knyte. So that's kind of where the origin of that name comes up. But then I switched Knight to my last name, Craven Knyte, and creative, because it's kind of the whole creative things that I'm all over the place with my creativity. Like I do woodwork, sewing, toys, make t-shirts. I forget more of my hobbies than I can actually name. So it's so that's where Break Knyte Creative really comes from. But I thought it was interesting you named the companies that I work for, because I'm I don't really do anything anymore in the ring. So I just AWF, man, I haven't touched that company in a long time.
It's yo, man, when you go through and you start doing research and you see oh, hey, this person wrestled at all these places. I'm oh
yeah, cool. You name places. I'm did I work for those places? And I was I appreciate the effort. I'm I can't remember. I don't remember my own history.
Oh, I've had people where I've legit listed off places that they wrestled, and they're oh man, and their tag team partner was on the show with us at the same time, and they're yo, we went there, and they're yeah, we went there 2015. They're how do you know that? Yo,
yeah. We just showed up, we just had our gear, and they said, hey, suit up.
Yeah. Exactly. And so they're always it's cool. It's cool to watch people's faces, even with you, the reaction of when you name a place and they're man, I don't remember that spot, but
yeah,
I'm sure I was there.
Yeah. Well, I've kind of reached a point where I think even some of the the legends or the guys that people know or people even grew up with or just seen on TV that I've worked with, that I'm just there's some people I don't remember. Honestly, it's and it's not that I worked with a lot of them, but just it's been well over a decade for me that I remember Jerry Lynn, I worked with Al Snow and Blue Meanie and a couple other people, but I'm just did I work with, but I'm at a point where did I work with this person? Did I just share a locker room with them? I don't really remember.
But if you've done both, man, it's cool either way.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, the first question I'm going to ask, man, is who is Craven Knyte?
Craven Knyte. Well, in the kayfabe world, in the squared circle, when it comes to that aspect, Craven Knyte is a brawler. He's a fighter. He's a survivor. He's a dude that's been fighting ever since he was a child. He's a rumbler from the Bronx, which is the title that I kind of coined for myself after realizing, oh man, I could have just took this 10 years ago and it would have been awesome. Being someone in the Midwest going by the rumbler from the Bronx, it works, because I grew up in New York, in the Bronx, New York. But no, Craven Knyte is just he's an aggressor, just kind of more along the lines, kind of the idea of what Stone Cold Steve Austin originally wanted to go for, kind of cold-blooded, ice cold killer type. But also I went by the Extreme Assassin, Craven Knyte, the Extreme Assassin Craven Knyte, or the Rumbler from the Bronx, and mainly the idea that I go through extreme measures to just take out my opponent. But I felt like my monikers really lend more towards the idea of just like vignettes and television. I didn't really have those opportunities. I wasn't really as aggressive as trying to get on the microphone and all that stuff. So it just made it hard for me to really present the type of character that I wanted to. But that pretty much what Craven Knyte is. It's just like kind of, when you think about it in terms like, it's not, because I've never been a big fan of the real, like, or of like, the cartoonish type gimmicks. But so I was just more of just like, I was a fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin's and The Rock's, where it's like there wasn't really so much of a gimmick per se, but they were just a badass in the ring. So that's kind of what I wanted to be, was a badass. So that's kind of what Craven Knyte is, kind of emulation of those, those characters and those performers that he idolized, which was like Stone Cold Steve Austin's, Kurt Angle's, Eddie Guerrero, The Rock, and all that stuff. Like that's pretty much kind of amalgamation of what he is. So
that's awesome though, and that's the thing though, is like you always want to find like those guys that you idolize, like growing up, like getting ready to get into the business, and then like you just, I feel the same way, because like for me, like I'm gonna be real, man. Like I don't know if I'll be like the great high flyer, because like first of all, I'm already older, so but my favorite wrestler was Rey Mysterio, and I'm like, yo, like he has this like underdog, like always willing to fight, and like he's like the underdog and like everything. And
always
like,
had a fight in him, and it's like, though even in a fight when he is an underdog, you still can believe that he can win,
right?
And stuff like that's one of my inspirations as well, especially when I think he came on when I moved to Minnesota, so I was a little more idle from wrestling when I moved to Minnesota when I was 16. So I just had 2 years of just really wanting, because I started wrestling and I started training, started taking my first bumps at like 14, 15 years old. So when I moved here when I was 16, had this 2-year idle period where I was just like, all I talked about was wrestling. All I wanted to do was wrestle. I didn't really have friends. All my friends were my cousin's friends and all that stuff. But I was known as a dude that always talked about wrestling. Any school assignment I did, and if I could be creative with it, to talk about wrestling. And then I met my first friends who, like one of them, he was talking about getting tickets for the SmackDown and Raw Super Show, which was the same Super Show and the same day that Eddie Guerrero passed. And but he was talking about that. I was like, oh yeah, because he asked me, because I was reading Stone Cold Steve Austin's autobiography in the classroom before the class started, and he was asking me about like getting tickets, and I gave him money to get tickets, and then we hung out that day, and we were like good friends. We were backyard wrestling on his trampoline and all that stuff, and I was like, I found my freaking friends, like my wrestling friends, and I don't really talk to or hang out with them anymore. I have a totally different group of friends now, but like it was nice to actually kind of find a place, because when I moved here, I was just like I was very lone wolf. Like I didn't know how to connect with anybody when I came here. So to be able to have friends to relate to with wrestling and all that, and actually be able to go to that same Super Show where Eddie passed and the tribute show and all that stuff, it was a great experience. It was a sad day, but it was a great experience for sure.
Oh, I can totally relate to that. Like I was that kid. I moved into a new school in like 7th grade, and like I have nobody, and like nobody touched wrestling. Even though it was like at the peak, the time that I was around, it was at its. I mean, I've been a fan since like 91, but when I got into my high school in like 98, that's when like DX and NWO and the Wolfpack had taken over. And like some people were into it, but they weren't like I was into it. Like I was like hardcore. Like I was up every Monday, every Thursday, and then I was like watching every Friday because SmackDown was coming on. So I was deep into it, and like they're like, oh yeah, we're not that cool. We're not like that. And then like once the period ended, the whole attitude and aggression era started. I was still in. Everybody else was like, yeah, we're not. You're the weird kid now.
No, it's just like, because some people they grow out of stuff, or they're not as into it as you are, and sometimes it's just niche to you and it feels like it's your thing. So once you're actually able to find people that you connect with that share that with you, it's such a nice feeling. But when it comes to wrestling, and I think even for me to this day, it's like, you watch Monday Night Raw, and it's not the greatest product of live television, but part of me still looks forward to it because it's wrestling and it's on, and it's still the same feeling I had ever since I was a kid, where it's just like, I just enjoy having Raw on because it's the same habit that I've had ever since I was like 10, 11 years old. That's when I really kind of started getting into it a little bit more, I think. So it's just, that still kind of carries with me to this day, even though it's like, whether it's good or bad, I still enjoy having it on. And so if I don't really want to pay attention to another Charlotte promo, I would just throw on podcasts during wrestling. So
It's funny though, man, because what's been wild is that like I've talked to my daughter is like a massive wrestling fan now, and she's turning 10.
Oh,
And
right.
it's one of those things where like I told her, I was like, when I was your age at 10, like I've already been watching since I was like 6.
Yeah, so catch
And
up, kid.
yeah, you gotta get on this level. But it's one of those things where it's like I think back to it, I'm like, yo, like I'm almost 36. I was like, I've been enjoying wrestling for 30 years. And I watch other people like go in and out of things, and I'm just like, can you name one thing that you've loved for 30 plus years? I was like, I can. I was like, this is
Yeah.
where I'm at. So,
Power Rangers for me, for sure. I got the tattoo. Prove it.
hey.
But
I
yeah,
remember when Power Rangers started. I was in Shallow Texas.
Yeah.
And like I remember like my birthday, turning it on and watching it was I Guy. It was the
Guy
first.
Guy.
Yeah.
That was your first monster. My first one was the pig.
Yeah.
That was, I remember, I think I just came home from school and he came on. I got home from school. I think I got out of school at 2, maybe 2:30, and then I would get home at 3. So I always got home about 5 minutes before 3. But the show started and this is when they're showing it every day, and the show started at 2:30. So my mom would have to record it on VHS. So for a good while to have a bunch of VHSs of Power Rangers, and I don't have them anymore. It would be so cool to actually watch those with the old commercials. But yeah, because those commercials back in the day is just like, it's different now because we stream everything. So we don't have a context of commercials on television much anymore, except that they're not really, it's funny. It's weird to say, it's like commercials nowadays aren't even that good, but it's like, we never really cared for commercials. But you think back, for nostalgia's sake, the commercials in the 90s, it's so different because everything had a jingle, everything was catchy, and it's like actually made you want to get Pizza Hut, even though there wasn't a Pizza Hut near me in New York. So, but they had a mascot with a Pizza Hut with eyes on it, and they had Dunkin' Donuts, an old guy with the mustache and Dunkin' Donuts, but they had the Halloween themed ones. Like, I think it was the holiday themed ones, commercials that just really, it's like, it was a wrestling podcast, we're gonna talk about freaking commercials, but like it's
fine, man. This conversation, like I legit, I'm just enjoying the conversation. The funny thing is,
for sure.
like I remember, and it's funny because like I go back and reference this all the time. So people were talking about I'm gonna talk about Power Rangers, guys. Sorry. But yeah,
definitely.
I remember the whole week. Remember when Tommy came through? Remember when Tommy came through and just like started giving hands to all the Rangers? Like, I remember thinking this show is gonna end with like the bad guy winning, and I remember like coming home and being left on this cliffhanger where like Goldar is at full, like he's at mega form, and like Dragonzord is there giving hands to the Megazord, and I was like, yo, this is how it ends.
Yeah. Oh man, it's like, it's funny because like when, and I'm gonna have to grab this prop.
Let's go.
Because I made this is a foam, one of my first foam replicas that I made that myself. This is a prop, but like, let's get hang on to it. Let's talk about Power Rangers. But no, like when Tommy came, I remember him coming and I thought he was cool and all. I love the shield of him. That's why I have this one right here. I have like all of these, but this is the one that's out because I love the Red Ranger's aesthetic with the shield. But that was my favorite part of the Green Ranger, was the fact that when he left, Jason got to have his shield, because I was a big Red Ranger Jason Lee Scott guy. Like, he was my favorite Power Ranger. So when Tommy came in and started getting all this attention, I was like, man, Jason should have had Kimberly. That should have been his girl. But to me, even to this day, like, no Power Ranger hold a candle to the leadership that the Red Ranger was able to like get, because like Jason was the leader. I'm such a snob when it comes to that, but no, like, but you know, Tommy is cool, and I appreciate JDF, Jason David Frank, as you know, as a person, because like he's all about it, and he's all about his fans and the fandom and sharing stories and all that stuff, and he's enthusiastic. I love that about him. But when it comes to Tommy and Jason, I'm a Jason guy all the way.
So it's funny, man, because like you're talking about that your sword that you made, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious, like, what inspired you to get to be a designer into wrestling business though?
So when it comes to wrestling, because like I've been making stuff ever since I was a kid. Like I wanted to make that sword ever since I was a kid because they had like crappy versions. You know, they sold it like this Japanese store that sold like the Japanese versions of stuff. But like um, I always loved making like even that Gold Ranger or that Green Ranger shield. I made that out of paper as a kid. So now I'm waiting for the day to actually make a, you know, kind of like a cosplay version of it when I get the time. But no, when it comes to wrestling gear, because I always appreciate the wrestling gear. Like I look at the wrestling gear, and even now I watch wrestling, and I'm always looking at people's gear more. Like I'm watching the matches, but always gravitating towards their gear, like looking at it. And I always think like, what was it made out of? Like who made it? Like, you know, that's a great color combo, and it inspires me and all that. And Rey Mysterio was one that like really inspired me because he wore different stuff he never wore the same thing twice.
Right.
Like if he wore the same color again, it would be a different piece of gear. The aesthetic of it would be somewhat different. So he just never. So his gear person is living in a mansion probably because he's always getting stuff made for every time he's on. But no, the way I started with wrestling gear, it's like I never thought I would really be making kind of a living making wrestling gear. I just did it for myself, and the way I started doing it for myself back when I was like 18, I was like. And I really started, you know, getting into wrestling out here in Minnesota. I would just, you know, I was skinnier. I had scrawny legs. I had chicken legs and stuff at the time. So I wasn't very confident in showing my legs. So I did kind of almost the Sabu style where I wore like the loose pants and I wore kick pads. My first match at First Avenue, I was in a tag match and I wore these really baggy blue pants that I had when I would just wear whenever I trained. But I couldn't get kick pads. I didn't know where to get kick pads. So I got like soccer shin guards, just regular soccer shin guards, and I wore those. But I had the wrestling shoes, so I had those to wear under. But then over time, I eventually just thought, you know what, I'm gonna just get plain like athletic pants, tuck those into the kick pads. I eventually got kick pads off High Spots, like not a sponsor. And I I did that style, but I would eventually started just making gear by making logos. I just did a CK, and if you've seen it, I know I got it in a bag somewhere because I kept that one. But it's a CK. If you see the font, you know it. I think it's actually the font from Blade, from the first Blade movie. And I found it, and I put the CK together, but it's made out of duct tape. And I applied it, I stuck it on, but I used crazy glue. And that was when I was 18. I'm 34 now. That shit is still on that gear. Like it held up after washing it a bunch of times and wrestling in it. So it accumulated sweat, accumulated being cleaned and all that stuff. Like it just held up. And I was just like, that's some good freaking glue and tape. And that's kind of how I did my stuff for a while. I was like using duct tape to make different random logos and stuff. Kind of like Jericho had like random designs and stuff, and Rey Mysterio just had different colors all the time. So I love the idea of just like I would always buy plain athletic pants, different colors, and just apply CK and a random logo on the other side and tuck them into my kick pads, and that was my look. Then eventually it's like over time it's like working on my legs a little bit more, and then I eventually got a little bit more comfortable showing kind of like the silhouette of my legs. So I started getting tights. So I got plain tights, but I started diving into using fabric paint. So kind of puffy paint that you'd see like girls use for kind of like the days for, in high school, and they're making different t-shirts and all that stuff, but like you can buy puffy paint anywhere. And that's kind of what I was using. And I pretty much became a tattoo artist using fabric paint on tights and creating like different designs. And over time I got over that, and I'd buy plain pairs of trunks when I got my legs thick enough to feel a lot more confident. And the first time I wrestled in trunks, I was like, oh my God, I'm free. Like I felt so comfortable and free, and it just felt awesome just wrestling in trunks. I always wanted to wrestle in trunks because like my favorite guys wore trunks, like Austin and The Rock. Like I wanted to like have their aesthetic, and also gave me less space to work with design wise. So it made my life a little bit easier. So things would go a little bit faster. But then eventually no one, and during these times where I'm just like using paints and tapes, and no one's like really, people are admiring it, but they're not really, inquiring or asking me about wrestling gear. And then my best friend, the one that I told you that like, I think I told you before the show that we'd kind of hang out all night because I couldn't sleep at his place because his mom wouldn't let me. He started using a sewing machine. He started making some gear for himself and for other people. And I was like, why not me? So I eventually I just bought a $100 machine on Amazon, started using that, and started practicing and making gear for myself. It took me about 5 weeks before I actually figured out how to properly make trunks for myself. But then it took me about 5 years to finally perfect the perfect recipe for trunks that fit me the way I like. And so maybe 5 years is an exaggeration, but sure as hell feels like it. But yeah, and then over time as I did that, and I think I made gear, like free gear, for one of my friends, like Ryan Cruz, who's a wrestler out here in Minnesota, and I made him like some black and silver tights and whatever, and I think I made them way too tight, but it gave me some experience to understand how to do measurements for other people. And then people started, eventually it's kind of like anything else, just word of mouth started getting around, and I just kept doing stuff for myself. People started, it's like, hey, can you make me gear? And I was doing pretty crappy versions of stuff for a while, until I eventually got, to this comfort level where I could start making gear for other people, start reverse engineering knee pads. Like I got Trace knee pads. I took them apart to completely analyze them and see how they were put together, because knee pads can be very confusing when you're first looking at it. Like people are like, how the hell do you even do this? And it's like, you have to think backwards with it. It's a very different way of thinking when you're putting that together, because it can get really confusing, especially when you're putting that back strap onto the knee pads. But no, I reverse engineer that stuff and eventually figured out how to make, kick pads and knee pads and trunks and other items, and and eventually just the understanding of measurements has helped me understand how to make other items. So that's kind of where it started, was just like the idea of just like appreciating gear, and then slowly progressing from different methods of just like using tape to using paint and buying stuff to eventually just making it myself. Then word of mouth just going around, and then people just like seeing what I'm putting out there. And then it's like I make one thing for another person, he tells a bunch of other people, and so on and so forth. So it just kind of snowballed from there. And that's kind of what, it kind of all happened, kind of like a happy accident. It's like wrestling gear is not the thing I saw myself doing, but it just happens to be something that I'm good at, that I can stay home and do. And I even have other things that like I'm doing, that I'm making money doing, where I'm making pretty much doing the same thing, but for action figures. I'm a big toy guy. So it's just like I'm making Superman outfits. I got commissions to make Superman outfits for like just little 6-inch action figures. So it's just like, everything's just kind of snowballing. And I think that's my route that I'd really like to be, is just doing more custom stuff for toys than for humans. So
yeah, I can imagine that would actually be like to make stuff for toys, like, because you already have the dimensions, you don't even have to worry about it. Everybody's different, whenever you get their sizes and stuff. So I can understand like why toys would be
it's very easy, and this is the thing that's gotten a lot of attention, is this Kingdom Come Superman with the wire cape and all that stuff. So people seen that, and they've been asking me for that. And this guy who has a big following in the toy collector community and toy customization community shared my stuff, and that's where I've been getting a lot of attention. And with that, I am kind of on my way to kind of do pretty much turning like customization or kind of gear making for toys into a side hustle on top of the wrestling gear that I'm doing all week. So it's pretty sweet.
That is awesome though. And it's funny too, because you talk about like how, you see different people, and then you like look at their gear and you're like, damn, like that's actually really fly. Because I think about like Tegan Knox, she always has like really fly gear.
Yeah.
And it's all based off Captain Marvel. Like she's got the whole color wheel, but regardless, it still looks good. Rey Mysterio obviously is like always gonna be one of those dudes who like always has like fly gear. But then like the New Day is another group too, guys that I just watch.
They always have good stuff. Yeah. From when do you think, or who do you think is probably your favorite, has had your favorite piece of wrestling gear that you think that, man, I want to get something like that?
It's funny that you asked me that question, because I always think about Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
Like every time I see his stuff, like he came out as the Joker, who is my favorite DC. Well, he's one of my favorite DC characters, my favorite DC villain for sure.
Yeah.
But like to see him come out at WrestleMania and beat JBL with the Joker look, like the Heath Ledger Joker. Like I thought, like the purple pants with the green suspenders over top with the white mask and the red eagles. I was like, that was sick.
Yeah.
But then it wasn't until recently that Lince Dorado got my attention, because I didn't realize Lince made all of his own gear.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know you did that.
He came out in a full Megazord outfit.
Oh yeah. I saw images of that.
I was like, holy cow, this is awesome.
Yeah. I think like I've thought about like how would I do that with wrestling gear? Like how would I incorporate it without it being kind of like big and extravagant. It's like it'd be as simple as just like a design on the kick pads and the knee pads and just kind of like some Black Ranger stuff in the I think the Black Ranger. No, it's the Red Ranger. It's a Tyrannosaurus that's in the legs and the torso and the arms. So it'd be a matter of having all this stuff on. But yeah, that's I saw images of that. I was like, holy crap. Because he's even had like I think this big elaborate outfit that is actually based off of Power Rangers Super Mega Force, I think, which is one of the outfits that has like, it's a Six Ranger, and it's where the Six Ranger has all the helmets scattered of all different Six Rangers on him. And he's even had like, he must have made it, or someone did, but like, yeah, that's just insane just for entrance gear. Like, it's just like, oh my God, I'd rather just go to Hot Topic, get a vest, heat press some stuff on, and I'm good. Like, I don't need to make anything too elaborate. It's like, you know, God help your wallet there.
Yeah, and it was crazy, you know, just seeing like their gear and all their stuff. I know when the New Day, I think it was last year before, they came out with it was weird because if you just looked at it, you're like, I don't understand. It was like red, yellow, and blue, and you're just like, okay, well, I don't know who, or no, red, orange, and blue. I'm sorry. But you're looking at it and you're kind of like, I don't get it. But then like in the details, like you realize like Big E is wearing red, Austin or Xavier was wearing blue, and then Kofi was wearing yellow. And what you ended up realizing was it was Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails. And I was
okay. I don't think I caught that.
Yeah, it was cool. And I was like, you know, just the things the ideas that these guys come up with and they're able to include. I was like, damn, dude, like they have like such fly gear, and that's the kind of stuff that I look at and I'm just like, man, I was like, for them to sit around and just be like, hey, you know who we should be today? Like, we should be these guys, or like, it's crazy. Like their tribute to Brody Lee that was at the Royal Rumble was so cool.
Yeah, and they made him wear it once just for the Rumble, and that's usually Main Event gear does all their stuff all the time. I don't know if you're familiar. You probably are familiar with Main Event gear, but like they're the top premier wrestling gear guys that pretty much just do stuff for other people. I think it's 3 guys that work for that company, but then there's also the woman named Sandra, who, if you watch Total Divas, you'd only know her by like, I knew her from seeing her when I did extra talent opportunities for WWE. So I remember seeing her and a couple of the other seamstresses in the back, like working on stuff. And I'd see that like even their big ring jackets, like the Miz's jacket and even Morrison's jacket before he was like, even when Morrison wasn't even there anymore, I remember seeing those big rolling crates with those jackets, like with Morrison's old jackets. And it's like, oh, it's not even his. So it's just like they just have it in those crates. But yeah, Sandra, she's the one that she does Cody stuff all the time and does the big bodysuits for Dustin, Gold Dust, or you know, however people remember him. And
7.
Yeah, 7. Yeah. I didn't. That's WCW, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't pay, but I know it as a reference. I think I've seen an image on Instagram or something. But no, like Main Event is kind of like the top tier when it comes to wrestling gear. Like they put their A-listers on the front, and I'm just like, that's cool. I'll focus on the other guys.
That's cool though, man. Like it was something that you had said before. Like, you know, you're very appreciative of like all the up and comer guys that are like seeing all your stuff because they like, you know, wear your gear, they promote your gear, they push your gear out there. And like I know a few people who have your stuff, right? So Chaz, who's actually on this podcast, he's usually on a debate show. He has your gear. Prince Machiavelli is another person who actually he turned me over to you as well as Chaz.
Okay.
And then K.A. Robinson, he had his Black Ranger gear. And so all that stuff, like all these, I know those 3. So I've seen those guys. I'm like, yo, I love that gear. So that's why for me, it was a no brainer when I was coming to you. I was like, like I've seen your work like firsthand. I was like, I got to go to him. I was like, he makes all the coolest shit.
Yeah, for sure. And especially when people's like stuff is on deck. And I feel like I have to communicate there. And I have like my days where I'm just like hit or miss, where I'm just like, I don't want to talk to a damn soul today. I don't want to talk to any of these wrestlers. And then I have days where I'm just like, all right, I want to clear up some details. And it's like, okay, what do you want? And usually it's dependent. I get the vibe off through the messaging, whether I feel like I can really go back and forth with a person. And I really need to do some more video calls with people. I did that with one person. It was a lot more relieving. When it came to figuring out the details. And I feel like that would probably be a good way to go. I just think I have just major anxiety issues. So sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to be on a call with anybody. I don't want to like talk to anybody, because when I was on that call, it's like, it was great, but we were talking for a good while. I'm just like, I don't have the time to do this. And it's like, if we do it, I'm just like, I have to kind of be kind of a dick and just be like, okay, man, we're going to talk, but we have to talk. We can't talk for more than 10 minutes. So it's just like, I have to kind of be strict with that stuff. But I'm such a friendly like person when it comes to other people, like when it comes to talking to people, that I'm just like, I'm happy to just give them my time and just figure things out and be as just be as communicative as possible. Like there'll be times where I'm just like, I may not seem like I'm communicating a whole lot, but there's like, you know, some weeks I'm going through stuff, some weeks I'm not. And sometimes I'm just like trying to focus. And some days I can't focus. So my weeks just kind of, or even my days, they just vary. Like as far as like what my mood is. It's like some days I can get like 2, 3, maybe 4 orders done, depending on what the items are. And there's like some weeks where I'm just like, I can barely bang out 2 orders of knee pads that only take me an hour to do, a set of knee pads. I'm just like, what is wrong with me? And it's like, that's an exaggeration, but it's like, but I've had times where it's been tough like that for me. So it gets overwhelming, especially when I have like a long list of messages that I need to respond back to. Like that is a day in itself. It's just responding to people.
Oh no, I can relate, because like when I do these podcasts and like I'll set them up and I'm like, all right, I've done all these podcasts and I'll put them in my G drive, right? And I'm just waiting in my Google Drive, and I just start to see the episodes pile up, and I was like, I really should start editing these episodes. It's like, yeah, I'll do it on Saturday. And then Saturday comes up, I'm gonna go to training, and then Sunday comes, and Sunday night I'm like, oh crap, I gotta go to bed at midnight, but it's 10 o'clock and I still have all these episodes to edit. Yeah. I'm like, oh no.
When I was doing a podcast, like I did the Breaking Knight podcast with my friend Sean Slade, who used to wrestle as well, but like but he's an artist. He's a really great artist. But I always push his stuff on my stuff all the time for other people to check his stuff out. But when I was doing a podcast, I always realized if I don't edit this as soon as I'm done with it, then I will not edit it. And I got to a point where I was like, because the very first podcast I tried doing, I got so tedious with it, with the editing, when I realized I need to make this live to tape. And the only thing I liked doing was just doing a separate intro. But then eventually I was just like, I just want to throw in the intro music and just let it bleed into the show and just let it end where it ends. So there's no editing. So really there's just adding something and that's it. But even that became a hassle for me. And the thing I just hated doing was just like posting it and just writing all the stuff and the tags to try and promote it. Like I feel like that's where I feel like I need an assistant, and where just like, yeah, like it's done. Just make sure people know about it. And it's like, I'd rather throw that off to somebody else. And I'm sure you probably feel that way too. Where it's just like, where it's like you do all this stuff. And I'm just like, or you're just like, okay, it's done, but I don't want to do anything else. Like someone else, just like make sure other people know what's up. Like I don't.
That's definitely. And it's like, because for like our podcast, we have a team that like helps us. Like I'll do all the editing and stuff, and then I'll put it up on like Anchor or even here on YouTube. I'll put it all up, and then like I just tell everybody else, I'm like, can you guys go share this, please? Because like I've done all this. But I gotta ask though, man, because like back when you're in your wrestling days, right? Yeah. Like, what's been like one of the worst bumps that you've ever taken?
Worst bumps. So funny enough, I've never really gotten like insanely injured. But from wrestling, not like I'm gonna step in a ring anytime soon. But like one of the worst bumps I would say was a moonsault that I took that I'm suffering the effects of it to this day. And usually I've never really hit anybody with a moonsault. I don't think I've ever actually landed a moonsault on a person, unless it was a standing moonsault. But I did a moonsault off the top rope, and I landed, and I jammed my toe into the mat. And I think that was probably like my left toe or something, because I always have these issues with my toes, because like I am like about 5'9", and 5'9" on a good day, I guess. Like I'm probably actually 5'8", but I have lifts. I have lifts. We call them talent in professional wrestling. But because I'm 5'8", 5'9", but I have very big feet. So I have like about like 12, like 13-inch like feet. And so my toes are very long. So I suffer a lot of issues, like even just like walking, and like my toes are just like hurt. And like I have really big bunions, as gross as that may sound, but like I have just like my feet are wide as hell. And So in wrestling, like I'll just like jam my toes into the mat, and it's like there's 2 occasions where like I just really had bad issues with my toes, and it was just that moonsault that I mentioned. I did the moonsault and I missed the guy, and I completely jammed my toe into the mat. I actually had to go to the hospital, and my day job I had to drive around in a cart, so I just couldn't walk on it. And then it was another time where I'm just like, I was pretty much ready to leave, but then it said, "Oh, we need bodies for this run-in and all that stuff at the end of the main event." I'm like, God damn it, I wanted to leave. And then I go out there, I'm just in my regular tennis shoes and stuff, and I go out there and I roll out of the ring and I fall onto the ground and my toe just jams and bends as far back as it possibly could. And I messed up my toe there. I'm like, wow, this sucks. And so I think that's kind of where it really gets pretty bad. I've always kind of enjoyed really high bumps. Like, I don't know if you ever taken a superplex, but sometimes it can feel like the softest bump you can ever take for some reason. Because it's just like it's insane. Not to give away too much, but like but it really is. It's like the softest bump you can take. But yeah, when it comes to bumps, I think I've definitely probably have taken worse, but ones that have actually landed me into having to visit a doctor is probably those toe ones with the moonsaults or just falling out of the ring.
Yeah, I don't tell a lot of people this, but I prefer dojo bumps versus just regular bat bumps.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'll throw
Dojo.
myself in the air and I'll just hit the ground, and like it feels so much better than just like taking a regular back bump. Like, it's weird.
Oh yeah.
And I
Yeah.
agree with you. I took a superplex in a tower doom spot, and I was like,
Okay.
actually, I was like, this wasn't bad at all.
Yeah.
And
It's
my trainer
it's
was working
funny.
with me. Trainer was working with me, and he goes, "Do you know how to take this?" I was like, "Yeah, it's just a bump." And he was just like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, okay." And then we just went.
Yeah, because if you can float properly, it's almost like you're in slow motion. And I think it takes like having good control of your body. And most wrestlers should have a good idea of how to control their bodies in certain situations. I've always kind of naturally just kind of had an understanding of how my body moves. So a lot of my stuff kind of can look pretty fluid sometimes. So just knowing that like where my body is positioned in the air so I can land nice and flat. So it's just like my feet are flat and my back is flat and my hands slap. But then you're hitting the center of the ring where there's the most give and the most bounce. And because you're hitting it so hard, it's taking that impact and then it's just bouncing you back up. So it's literally like hitting the hardest trampoline you can ever hit. But that's the only case is if you're taking a bump like that. But I think any higher might be really bad. But because sometimes just taking like a regular back body drop might hurt, but you might not actually hit. If you're hitting the center, you're fine.
Right.
Anywhere else, there's probably a good chance you might get like a stinger where like you take a bump and for some reason you can't move, and it's like it can be scary sometimes.
Yeah, no doubt. So I'm curious, man. Like, whenever you were actively like in a ring and you're going week to week and you had match after match, what was like that post match meal that you had to have to like just make yourself feel like, all right, I'm good.
And I never had anything that I had to go to. It's really just a matter of what. It's sad. There was never anything specific that I had to have, but because it's wrestling and everyone knows this, it's like, if you're going out with everybody else, there's a good chance you're just going to Perkins. So, but sometimes it's like some weekends you're just like, I want to eat really healthy. And then after shows, I'll probably go to a Perkins and I will get like, oh, just give me like 4 eggs scrambled with some spinach and a couple pieces of toast and some bacon, and that'll be good. And but that was like way later. But when I was younger, and even my matches, like my last couple matches last year, it would just gravitate towards McDonald's because I could just drive through and just get a chicken sandwich or a couple McChickens or whatever and just be set. As long as I ate something, because like most of the time you're just, unless you bring some of your own snacks or eat whatever pizza that venue is providing that day, or that venue is actually taking from another place, bought from another place to resell at a more expensive cost. They like you don't really have food to eat for probably about at least 3 hours, maybe 4,
Right.
maybe 5, depending. So it's like you're going all that time without really eating. So at the end of the show, you're starving. So it's like, what are you going to get? Like, what's the closest fast food? Oh, there's a Taco Bell. Oh, there's a McDonald's. There's a Burger King. The Burger King makes me gassy. So Perkins, I can probably get an omelet at Perkins. So it's just like, yeah, it just really depends. So it's really nothing specific. I just knew it was just like, I just wanted to eat. That was about it. What about you?
So Taco Bell like was like the
Okay.
go-to spot. Like, I don't know why, but like we go through and just the $5 box is like always like the go-to. Like, just let me get the $5 box with the soft shell taco and a Baja Blast, and I'm good for it.
Yeah, I didn't really like Taco Bell for a good while for some reason. I think I just stayed away from Taco Bell for years, and then eventually I got like pretty bad food poisoning from Burger King, and I stopped eating Burger King for a few years. Then eventually I just kind of I went back, but then every time I eat Burger King, I feel gross. It's like, McDonald's. I can eat McDonald's like 5 days a week, but like the one time a month I eat Burger King, I feel disgusting. Like I just feel like it really messes with my system. But
yeah, I feel that same way with Subway. Sorry,
Subway,
I don't mean to put that out there, but yeah,
yeah,
one time I was at Subway. I did Subway breakfast, and I actually bought Subway for breakfast, and then I had a sandwich for lunch, and I was eating breakfast, and just like it was weird. It was just one time I was just like I just ended up throwing up, and I
oh
was
yeah,
like I'll never go back to Subway again, and I haven't.
yeah.
That was like
Yeah,
that was it.
that'll do it. All it takes is that one time. Like, I feel like if Piata, I don't know if you're familiar with Piata.
Mm-mm.
Like, where are you at again?
Maryland.
Okay, so you're in Maryland. So I don't know because there's only 3 locations out here in the cities. Like even for me, I have to drive 15 minutes just to get to a Piata. But Piata is Italian street food. And it's actually not the worst food you can eat. It's actually pretty healthy, if anything. And it's pretty much like the Italian Chipotle. And it is delicious. It's like, yeah, it's awesome. So if you can ever see a Piata, go there and check it out. And it's awesome. If you ever get to a point where it's like, oh, Piata, I remember Craven telling me about this. It's like, it's delicious. And I eat it every single time I can. It's like I had it Sunday. I bought 2, it's called Piata. It's pretty much like burritos, but it has like, avocado, like they have avocado Piata, or they have a, BLT Piata, which is really just what it sounds like, but they have their own ingredients that they throw in there, but they throw like arugula in there, and they have like, you have your choice of meats and chickens, like crispy or grilled, or like just like Chipotle and stuff.
Right.
It's just, I feel like it's a lot healthier. But I got like 2 of the Piatas. I got 2 different ones. One for the Rumble on Sunday because I hung out with my friends, and I was like, well, I'm going Piata on the way because Piata's on the way to my friend's house to where we were going to watch the Rumble. I was like, well, I'm getting Piata. Anybody want anything? So I got a couple things for them. So I was like, okay, because like we don't want to really order a bunch of food. I was like, I had Piata for lunch, and then I bought an extra Piata so I can have that for dinner. And so I really only eat like 2 actual meals in a day. And then yesterday, me and my friend had Piata again, and it was funny because like I got my friend Sean, just like he said like, oh yeah, let me get this like meatball bowl thing or whatever, and the meatballs are huge there, they're ginormous, and their pasta there is delicious, but I never really get it. But I was like, you know what, my friend's always getting double meat. I'll get double meat on the spaghetti and meatballs and stuff, and he got it and was like, Jesus Christ, these are huge. So he and usually he eats 2 meals in one shot. He actually saved half that for later. And it's just like, yeah. And then we ended up eating there yesterday. We went to the Mall of America. We ended up eating there yesterday, which is like, if it's around, I have to eat it because it's not really that close to me. Like 15 minutes isn't bad, but I mean, it's like, when you think, up the street, there's this restaurant, up the street is that restaurant, and this and that. It's like, when I have to drive 15 minutes to get to this one specific one, it's like, I'm gonna take every chance I get to eat it. So if I had to pick a food that I have to eat, it'd most likely be Piata, but that's any day of the week.
Sounds like it. Sounds great though, man.
Yeah.
I have to go giant ass meatballs. I'm down with this.
Yeah.
So a question I'm gonna have for you before we hit into the best segment of this show, man. I just need to know, like, what advice would you give to like up and coming wrestlers?
So one of my favorite things to do with like up and coming wrestlers, I love working with new guys. It's like, I feel like if all I did was like coach and just work with new guys, that would be like the best thing in the world for me. That was kind of be my dream job, is just coaching professional wrestling. And because what I feel like I have a lot to offer there. But one of the things I love doing is just like, let's go out there and have the match you want to have, and then we'll pick it apart afterwards. And because I'm not the type of like, I guess I'll be considered a veteran, but it's like, really, I haven't really been anywhere. So I have trouble looking at myself as a veteran. But in the eyes of the people that know me, that have seen me around, they view me as a veteran. And so as knowing that I have something to offer is pretty nice. But at least have that kind of status to certain people anyway. But I'm not the type of person that like I'm gonna get in the ring with a kid that's only been working for a few months and this is probably his first match or second match or third, and then go in there and beat the living crap out of him just because I could. I don't believe in that because I didn't really get that. I was fortunate not to really get anything like that, so I'm not going to give that to anybody else. So we go out there and we're gonna try and steal the show and have a really great match, and not really toot my own horn, but I've always kind of been that type of dude that like I can get in the ring, give me a broomstick, and I'll probably have the best match on the show. And like I'm least confident in my abilities that I can do that. It's like it sounds like a dick thing to say, but it's like, but anyone who knew me in wrestling kind of knows that. So be able to go in there with, you know, a new kid and actually like, let's have the match you want to have. And then I can actually see like where we can fix things. Like, okay, so we did this and this, and then I'll be like, okay, you're doing this, but maybe we could move this here and we could switch this up and blah, blah, blah. And then after the match, we can say, okay, so what you were lacking was fire. Like, you know, you move really good in there, you do this and that, but like you just needed to be alive. Like I was like even in there pushing you and wanting you to actually give me some life. Like say I'm the heel and he's being the face, I'm just like, give me some life, show some character, show some life and all that stuff. Like show that there's a reason for people to cheer you and stuff. So doing stuff like that, be able to figure that stuff afterwards is one of my favorite things to do with new guys. As far as advice goes, is that like, just make sure everything you do means something. Make sure that what you do is yours. Like you see something that you want to emulate, figure out a way to make it your own. Like go out there and just like really like show guys that like you belong in there, that you know what you're doing. And you have to go in there being sure of yourself, even though if you have a little bit of lack of confidence, like just kind of, you don't have to really let it show, like kind of really standing in there and just like I said, just showing that you belong. But when it comes to like not getting so heavy like on what moves to do, it's like if you're going in there thinking when like the most important thing to you is what moves you can do and how many moves you can do, you're going about it all wrong. It's all because that's the issue that you see on television all the time, that like a lot of kids do. And I talk like a freaking old guy. So this is how I am. Like when I watch wrestling with my friends and stuff, I'm like, what the hell are they even doing? And is like they, you know, people do a lot of stuff and it doesn't mean anything. And so as you can do a lot, you can get a lot across by doing very little. And that's why Orton is one of the best to watch. Like some people may think he's boring. Some people may think he's great. And the people who think he's great understand what he's doing in there. And like, sure, he may put a freaking headlock on, but it's like, he's slowing it down. So when the things that matter happen, they freaking matter. Instead of just like, we're going to do flippy do after flippy do. Let's throw a bunch of freaking super kicks. And I love me a freaking super kick. But when I see it 100 times on a show, it's just like, does that move even mean anything? Like you say super kick 100 times, does that word even like exist anymore? Like it feels like it just fades into the ether. But no, it's like, so yeah, like when it comes to moves, like, you know, you think about it, a lot of wrestlers, when it comes to moves, a lot of wrestlers, like they have mainly 4 to 5 moves. And when I say moves, these are like their signatures and their stuff. So you go in there, it's like, these are the moves you want to get across. Like something maybe you do in the shine, something that you get across in the, when you're firing back in your hope spots, and then a couple things that you definitely get in your hope spot, and stuff that you do for the false finishes. And then the 4th or 5th is your finisher. And, you know, that last one, everything else is just kind of whatever. It's just like, is all transitional stuff. But those other 4 main moves, like those are your 4 main moves. And those are the ones that you get across. Those are the things people know you for. You think of John Cena, he does them all in his comeback. But like you have like Austin, he does the elbows. He has the Luthez press. He did the stinger. He did the spine buster every now and then, but also he has a stunner. But you think about it, it's like he doesn't really have a whole lot. Like he was really more known, if you want to count it as a moveset, is the stomps in the corner, stomping a mud hole into you, and just, you know. But he did his punches. But like the Attitude Era was a different era, because like they didn't do a whole lot, but everything that they did was very physical, and everything was like really exciting, and they move really fast. And I think that's why a lot of kids tend to move really fast now, is because maybe not now, because a lot of kids now probably have seen, you know, a lot more stuff that's recent, so they just know to do a lot of moves. But me, I move fast a lot because I was watching The Rock and Austin freaking hitting the ropes like crazy and just moving really fast all the time. But yeah, but when it comes to when it comes to moves, because kids get so freaking move heavy, and that's why I'm kind of focusing on that. Is at least from what I've seen, it's like people get so caught up in what moves that they're gonna do and how many moves they're gonna do. They don't realize that they're doing all these moves, but they don't mean anything because like you're just doing a bunch of them. So you want to separate them. You want to make sure they mean something. You want to let moments breathe. So if you do something, especially if you're doing it for television, you're doing it for a camera, you really pay attention to the camera. Like you work for the camera, but you work for the people, and you make sure that you're being seen and showcasing your stuff. You hit a drop kick and you hit probably the best drop kick of your entire freaking life, then you freaking relish in that. And then it's like, yeah, you should go for the pin. Everyone's always gonna tell you go for the pin, but it's like you see freaking people on television not going for stuff right away. It's like, so why should you be any different? It's like, especially if you're a heel or a face, you just kind of, you pick your timing based off what role you're playing in the match. Mm. But I think my advice when it comes to it, just like move wise and presentation wise, is make sure your moves count, make them your own, and just really let stuff breathe. Make sure everything everything you do matters, that it stands out. So, if you do a clothesline, okay, sure, everyone's going to do a clothesline. How are you going to make your clothesline different? You almost like go into the same mindset. It's like, we cut your match down from 15 to 5. So go out there and do whatever. And it's like, you can get sad about it, or you can make that 5 minutes the best 5 minutes of Monday Night Raw. It's like you kind of do the same thing with like picking a move. It's like, I do a clothesline, but like, or I do this DDT, or I do the super kick, but how can I make it different? It's like, and it's all a matter in the movement you maybe do before, or how you do the movement. There's a certain snap that you add to it, or you slap your leg better than anyone else on that freaking roster, or just what you do after it. So it can be something like you do a super kick, but it leads into something bigger. So you do a super kick and they get stunned a little bit. You do a German suplex and stuff. And I love those things where it's just like, okay, you do kind of a combo thing. I love combos where just like, you do like, like a kick. Like what I do is I do a kick to the leg, which is literally like a sweep that brings them down to their knee. And then I kick them in the chest and then a hard knee to the face. And, or just a quick knee to kind of like what Roderick Strong does, like where he does like a big jumping high knee to the face and it stuns him a little. And then he gives him an Olympic slam. It's right. Like, stuff like that. That's how he's able to take those moves. He's literally taking a Triple H move and a Kurt Angle move. He throws his own twist onto it and he made it his own because like he does it. Cause even when I used to do the Angle slam because I love Kurt Angle, but I did it differently by like, instead of doing the float over that he does, I literally take it up and bring it down like a Samoan drop. So I literally pick you up like an Angle slam and I snap back as hard as I can. I just call it a stiff Angle slam because I'm just snapping back as hard as I could. And even like my finisher that I called Nightfall. Now someone at AEW calls something Nightfall, which makes more sense because it's a variation of a backbreaker. But like my finishing move, I was kind of skeptical to use it in front of certain people because my move is very unique. Like it's actually a move that I made up that looks really cool. And it's just a mix of the rock bottom and an Angle slam. So any move that I did in the ring, I always try to make sure it was my own. So, I did like a lariat where people were sitting on their ass on the mat and I just do a low lariat and all that stuff. But I had a certain snap to it that I did that I feel like any other person that I see do it, I've never seen them do it the same way I do it. And then like, if I do like a spine buster or if I do a Eddie Guerrero's helo, like, what the helo is?
Yeah.
Okay. For the longest time, I didn't know what the actual name of it was. So I just want to make sure everyone else knows. But it's when he jumps from the apron. I know, but for other people, it's when he jumps from the apron on the outside of the ring and he floats in. So I did that same thing, but I turned it, instead of a body, I made it my elbow. So it looked like I was hitting him with the point of my elbow. Sometimes it looked like I barely even touched the guy, but even after I hit them with it, I would just my movements after were so fluid that it was easy to transition to other things. I allowed them to sell a little bit and I pull them in for a pin. So I just let that and I always told kids count 1, 2, 3, like you pick your speeds based on what you're doing, but just kind of take your time with stuff. Don't feel like, you got to do something and have to rush into the next thing right away. Just kind of do a punch, let them sell and just be like 1, 2, 3. And then grab them, do something and do 1, 2, 3 and grab them. European 1, 2, 3 and then go to them. Just like really taking your time is like, and I feel like kind of counting method might work. And you can pick your speed as far as how you're counting, as long as you're taking your time in between stuff. So that's how I feel is the best advice I can give to someone. It's just like, and I imagine you've probably gotten pretty good advice as far as something like that too, and in similar scenarios where just people just need to, make sure what you do counts, matters, is unique to you, stand out, and all that, and just take your time and yeah.
Yeah, when it came to like taking time, one of my friends, it clicked as soon as he said it. He's like, just fight to your favorite song.
Okay.
I was like, bruh.
So what is your favorite? I guess it depends. Like, what if your favorite song is like, I don't know. What would I use as an example for that? It's like a poor like way to go about that.
It's funny because like for me,
because if it's like death metal, it's like you're just like da, 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 da.
right. It's funny for me because like for me, I'm a huge my favorite song, which is crazy, is Godzilla by Blue Oyster Cult. So like
okay,
when the guitar hits, that's like the rate that I want to be fighting at, right? So it's just like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Because then you're on the rhythm. And I was thinking about it. I was like, that's it clicked, and I was like, that's so weird. So like all my sequences, when I start putting them together, they're all to different songs. So like maybe one would be Iron Man by Black Sabbath, one would be Godzilla by Blue Oyster Cult. Another sequence might be like Pray for Me by the Kendrick Lamar. Like it's weird. Like I hear it now, and whenever when I see the spot, like I'm like, all right, and then I hear the song in my head, and then it's like, all right, this is the rate I'm gonna hit them at, and then So it's funny to hear you talk about like the counting wise, but I can see it now.
Yeah, it's like it's a rhythm, like, and so it lines up. It makes sense. But I never thought about it in the context of like a song. But it makes sense. It depends on the songs and all that stuff. But also music has a rhythm, and just like I'm talking about the taking your time and all that stuff, like everything has a rhythm. So. But yeah, it totally makes sense. But I also feel like, that timing is important because it can be easy to want to transition so quickly when it's like really unnecessary. It's like really important to let stuff breathe. It's like the same thing where there's laughing breaks in like, TV shows or whatever, or in comedy or anything else. So like there's a break for something. And like sometimes if it's a movie, like, sometimes it's not always going to give you time to actually react to something because sometimes you might miss something. But something that is written properly would be like, they do something really funny, and then whatever happens in the time, like probably the 10 or 15 seconds afterwards doesn't matter because like you're laughing to the really funny part, and then they can add another funny part, or you can just react. So it's just a matter of just like going with that rhythm and giving the crowd some time to react to stuff and to really take it in and give you and your opponent time. And also very important just to know that your opponent is your dance partner and you guys are working together to put a match together. So it's not just like going in for the business for yourself and just doing it all on your own. And if that's anything I've learned from like being at the performance center for a little bit when I went for a tryout, was like they really key on you and the other person, you and the other people in there working together and helping each other to get further in this, and not really just being all about yourself.
Right.
So that's kind of how they're able to single people out and stuff.
Well, man, that was like a lot of great advice to be like thrown out there. So definitely appreciate you for like sharing your knowledge with us.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm happy to kind of talk about it. It's like it's been a while since I actually talked about wrestling in this form, so it's pretty cool. I'm happy to help out.
So we're going to go into the best part of this show. It is called the 3 Count Podcast 10 Count Questions. And here's how it works. I'm going to fire off 10 questions at you. And then, you're just going to give your answer based on those questions. Whatever first comes to your mind.
It's just a faster version of what we've been doing for the last hour anyway.
Pretty much, yeah. So let's get this thing started. We're going to put the timer on and bing. And here we go. SmackDown or Raw?
SmackDown.
Favorite X-Men?
Wolverine.
Just like the eyes. Sonic Mario.
Sonic or Mario. I'm gonna say Mario.
There you go. Favorite place to take a nap?
this chair where my cat is at right now. It's awkward, but for some reason I get the best sleep.
Bet. 3 things that you would take with you on a deserted island.
My Leatherman tool. Crap, I don't know. Bluetooth headphones and a fully charged iPhone.
Oh, bet. Favorite actor.
Whoa. I know I have a favorite. I know I have an answer for this, and I'm blanking. Crap. I'm going to spit out John Leguizamo.
Hey, because some of us gotta stay a super freak though.
Yeah, no, mainly my reasoning for that is that like he was probably the first person from his like funny one-man shows to help make me understand like my heritage. Like I'm Puerto Rican and I'm Hispanic, and growing up I just never really thought about it and really thought anything of it. So because of his like specials, I'm just like, oh my god, I relate to this, and now I know like a little bit more about my my heritage because of him. So yeah. So I'll say him, and I love him in anything that he does. So
yeah, I was gonna say I remember watching him with John Leguizamo show. So like that, I can totally go with you on this one.
Oh yeah.
Let's go. Best fast food place to get a burger.
Get a burger, fast food. Man, I'm gonna say, crap. I can't think of any place. At least I haven't been to a decent place that has a good burger in a while. So I'm going to say Piata because they have just great food in general. They don't have burgers, but they're awesome. So I'm just going to plug them again. Piata, give me money.
All right. Let's go with favorite podcast.
Favorite podcast is actually another wrestling podcast. It's kind of like a comfort podcast, but also my first podcast I've ever listened to and discovered podcasts with, RBR Weekly Wrestling Talk.
Awesome. Cool. And then nominate someone you want to see on this show.
On the show, let's see. I'm going to say he's actually just a personal friend of mine. I'm going to say Leonard Literacy. He's part of the gaggle of friend nerds that I have, but he's also a professional wrestler out here. He does wrestle, more locally too in the other states that are actually allowing shows. And he goes by Leonard Literacy. And he's a really awesome talent and probably a good person worth talking to on the podcast.
Bet. And then last but not least, my favorite question to ask every single person who comes on this show, favorite curse word.
Fuck. Because I say it all day, every day.
That's awesome. Hey, I tell people all the time, like anybody who's listened to the show numerous times knows exactly what YouTube video I'm going to reference. So if you haven't checked out the history of the F word, you need to.
Oh
yeah.
I need to catch because that's on Netflix. I need to catch that, right?
Oh, no. The history of the F word is like a 5-minute video that you can watch on YouTube.
Okay, I was thinking of the Nicolas Cage thing they did on Netflix where they did the history of curse words thing.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that's probably what you were talking about. So yeah. Definitely have to check that out.
History of the F word. It's awesome. But anyway, that's it for the 10 count questions. So more importantly, what I need you to do for me is tell our viewers and our listeners where they can find you.
Well, you can find me, funny enough, I'm one of those jackasses that has 3 pages on Instagram. So I have a Break Knyte Creative. Knight is spelled very differently. Just think of Knight, but with K-N-Y. And Break Knyte Creative, where you see all my wrestling gear stuff. Craven Knyte, if you just want to see what nonsense I'm up to all day. I usually post a lot of stuff with my cat. And then there's Dark Knight Customs, which is just mostly toy focused, and I'm pretty much just on that and Facebook, but either one is whatever. And then I have the YouTube page and I have a Twitch, which is all Break Knyte Creative. So but I'm not twitching as much lately, but I do have some old YouTube videos. If you're not familiar with me, you can check that stuff out where I'm just like, you see me making wrestling gear and or other stuff. So yeah.
Bet, and that's where you can find him. So that is it, man. Welcome. Once again, like we said, this is a 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering the Ring. I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller. This has been our awesome expedition, by the way. This is Mathlight. This is where it's at. Anyway, this is Now Entering the Ring with Craven Knyte. So you guys know what to do. check out the next episode and be there, or just wait till this intro or this outro exits and then just listen to the next episode, because that's what we're doing. Peace. What's going on, 3 Count Nation? I'm Clifford Red Dog Miller with the catchphrase. But what I really want you to do right now, go to twitter.com, right? Go over there, find us at the 3count_pod, give us a follow, give us a like, give us a comment. We want to talk to you guys. Go to IG at the 3count pod. Give us a like, give us a follow, leave us a comment. We want to interact with you. Go to youtube.com, give us a subscribe, turn the bell on, turn the notifications, leave a comment. We want to talk to you. Go to anchor.fm/the 3count podcast, and in there, you can leave us a message, and we will talk to you. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that we want to talk to you. We want to have fun with you guys, and we love listening to what you guys have to say. Also, one thing I need you to do for me, the 3count podcast also has merchandise. Oh! At prowrestlingtees.com/the 3count pod. Please go buy our t-shirts. We love you guys, and we hope you love us too. So show us some support, please.